now we're live.
All right. Hello, world.
Hey. So, this is a nice place to brew happy hour for April 2nd. My name is George. My usual partner in crime will be a little bit late. Jason will be here shortly. And with us tonight, we have Matt Bolling of the American Homebrewers Association, an event planner for
Yep.
those
Hi, everyone.
guys. Hey, um, so I reached out because we're doing this thing. We're just trying to blow off some steam, and thought it'd be fun to talk to you about some upcoming things you guys have going on. If you're doing any, I don't know if you're doing like virtual events or anything like that, but that just kind of see what's going on. So
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate being able to come on the show and talk a little bit about everything that the American Homebrewers Association does. So I don't know if your listeners are very familiar with the AHA. I imagine a lot of them are at least either beer lovers or homebrewers, but the American Homebrewers Association has been around for 42 years, since 1978 when homebrewing was first legalized, and we are the only association dedicated to growing and protecting homebrewing rights and growing the hobby around the country. And we publish Zymergy magazine, which comes out 6 times a year. If anybody is an AHA member who's listening, I'm sure that they can attest to the quality of the homebrewing content that comes out in Zymergy. It's
yeah,
full of all kinds of recipes and tips and tricks and articles and just everything you want to know about brewing is in Zymergy. So um, yeah, we've got lots of events coming up, including our National Homebrew Day, Big Brew. But I just want to thank you for having me on because homebrewing is one of those things that I think with the state of the world right now is it's one of those things that I think will be able to bring people together,
yeah.
even though they have to stay home and homebrew. I think is a great way to look at the way that we're moving into to socializing as it is. But we've seen a lot more homebrew clubs do virtual meetings like this, so it's just really cool to see the way that the hobby has responded to our current situation. So
Yeah, one of the main homebrew clubs that we're a part of is the Joliet Brewers Guild out in Joliet, Illinois,
mhm.
and they are doing multiple times a week. They're doing virtual happy hour stuff, kind of stuff themselves for the club, and just bringing people together. And it's an odd feeling drinking beer in front of a computer screen with a bunch of guys that you usually are in face to face with, but it's still that connection, even if it does have to be through a webcam, if you will.
Yeah,
So
that's one of the people get into homebrewing all like for the same reason, right? Like beer is awesome,
mm-hmm.
and everybody get nobody. No, I don't know many people that really get into the hobby and realize that there's this entire social network behind homebrewing that is really kind of where the hobby lives in these homebrewing clubs and in these homebrewing shops around the country. Um, so it's just really cool to see the way that these different entities have responded, and you know, being able to. I've been able to log on to several homebrew clubs virtual meetings the last couple of nights, and been able to just talk a little bit about what the AHA is doing to respond to the coronavirus situation, and it's really great to see that people are still able to have that common connection and bond over something that let's face it, we're all seeing a lot of bad news in the world right now, and uh, to be able to log on and spend an hour, 90 minutes, 30 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
talking about something that you have a lot of passion for is something that I think is really cool about the hobby.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, one of the things that's really struck me over the years about homebrew clubs is the total lack of pretension that people have when it comes to sharing recipes and bouncing ideas off of each other. And if you bring something to a club and it's no good, they don't tend to come down on you about it. It's more of a collaborative kind of,
Hmm.
session. And, here's what might have happened. Here's some things you can change. And it's always very, uh, you know, well received and kind hearted in that, and I think that that's really translating to this more virtual atmosphere as well. So
Totally.
yeah.
I think the clubs, one of the greatest parts about the hobby, I think that is lives within those homebrew clubs is, like you said, that people are very welcoming. Um, there's no stranger kind of in those crowds,
Hmm.
but also, I became a father last year, so I've got a 1 year old right now, so I don't really get a chance to brew quite as often as I would want to. So I'm currently enjoying a black IPA from Port City Brewing in Alexandria, Virginia. I don't know what you have right
Oh
there, but I unfortunately
yeah.
don't have any homebrew.
No, you know what, I'm totally remiss. This is a happy hour. We got to talk about what we're drinking. So you've got,
Yeah,
what do you
right.
say, Port City? What did you have?
Port City Brewing in Alexandria, Virginia. I believe that they're a GABF winning brewery
Okay.
multiple times over. They have a black IPA called Long Black Veil, which is available on store shelves if you're around the Virginia area right now. And it's fantastic. I love the style.
Yeah, so for me, what I grabbed was, I have Hellas Awaits from Ocelot Brewing, and
Right on.
they're out of Dulles, so they're in the northern part there, and I have had a couple cans of this, not today but before, and it's a
No
really
judging.
no
I'd have
no
been fine with
it's
it.
it's a really good representation of the Hellas style, and easy drinking, and just enough hop bite to really kind of make it worth it on that.
All the people on the AHA staff and people who know me best know that I will pair Hellas with more Hellas. I'm a big fan of the style. That's kind of my go-to drinking beer. This
Yeah.
one was just, I really enjoy a black IPA as well. And, it's one of those styles you just don't see on store shelves, I feel like, that much anymore. So when I saw that this one was available, I scooped it up.
Well, on the
That's one of
last
the beauties of homebrewing too, right? I can make my own black IPA.
Yeah, on the last one that we did, I was actually drinking. Devil's Backbone came out with a charity um, one, a charity box, and each one was supporting a different charity, and one of them was a, like, what was it called? Step into Darkness or something like that, and it was a smoked black IPA.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think the smoke character of that kind of overwhelmed the hops a little bit, but
Mm.
it was, it was still very good, and it met with the whole theme of it, because it supported firefighter charities. So the whole smoked beer thing kind of made
Oh,
sense.
that's cool. Do you
Yeah,
know how they made the smoke? Like, did they use smoked malt in it?
I assume as much, but no, it didn't
The
have like a recipe listed, unfortunately.
the reason I bring that up is that so one of the things that I organize is our annual Homebrew Con, which is our
Mm-hmm.
the world's largest gathering of homebrewers. And a couple of years ago, we were in Portland, Oregon for it in 2018, and there was a speaker there who he makes a lot of smoked beers, but he doesn't use smoked malt. He actually smokes his own hops that he
Oh, that's
grows at home.
interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
and he had like 4 or 5 different versions of the same beer, and one was with like peat smoked hops, and one was with like a oak smoked hops. And I mean, the differences were subtle, I'll be honest, but like you could definitely tell them apart. And yeah, the seminar was really fascinating because I had assumed that if you make a smoked beer, you use smoked malt, right? Like that's
Right. I
just
would
what
assume
I
that too.
thought.
Yeah.
So I'd never even heard of somebody using smoked hops. And if anybody's listening and wants to know more about how Brian Haslip was the speaker's name, who belongs to Oregon Brew Crew in Portland, Oregon. He gave the seminar. We record all those seminars and put them on the American Homebrewers Association's website for anybody who's a member. They can log on and go to the seminar archives and listen to it.
Okay.
I think the seminar is called Experimenting with Smoked Hops. So really one of the more fascinating topics that we've covered in years past, because there's always how to design a beer recipe or mash pH. Those kinds of topics are always really popular, but they get beat to death sometimes.
Yeah.
There's only so many times that you can present the same topic. And I've been organizing the HomebrewCon stuff for, I guess, 7 or 8 conferences, and I had never heard of anybody using smoked hops before. So that one was really cool to see.
Yeah, that's a new one for me too. I guess, the only thing that I would think about that is, does the actual like smoking process of that, I assume you use a cold smoke, but does that affect the utilization of those hops? And with,
I'm not sure.
yeah, and with that is like, I assume you have to put them in at the closer to the beginning of the boil to really get enough
Hmm.
interaction for it to, because I'm assuming if he grew them himself, he was using whole leaf.
Holy, yeah, they were whole
Yeah,
cones.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I assume you have to put them in towards the beginning, but that's interesting. I might have to look that one up, because the only other way that I've seen people do it is, obviously smoked malt, and then I've seen one guy bubbled smoke through the liquid after it was.
How would you do that? Use like a aquarium air
Yeah,
pump or something like
exactly. He
that?
kind of like
Oh, okay.
used an aquarium air pump to effectively oxygenate it with smoke,
Okay.
and imparted it that way. And that was interesting. My only concern with that would be how well that would hold up over time. And would
Hmm.
would you have the potential for any kind of infection or anything because of that? So
Could be. I think it's one of those, smoke is one of those delicate flavors, just like when you want to drink an IPA, super fresh. A lot of those flavors will just kind of mellow out after time. So,
true.
um, yeah, that's interesting. I'd never heard of that tactic, but my only reason for bringing it up is that, you know, that's just one example of all of the content that the American Homebrewers Association members have access to on our website. So,
For sure. And
um,
I've definitely, like I said, I've definitely taken advantage of a bunch of your stuff, and as well as the recipes. I tend not to do clone beers myself, like,
hmm
taking someone else's recipe and just try to recreate it. But I do like to take a look at them as a jumping off point
hmm
of different thoughts on different styles, and how might be able to kind of riff on that and reinterpret it for my own use. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Sorry, I
no, no,
didn't.
no, go ahead.
I
Yeah,
was just gonna say we've got the AHA website. We actually have over 1,000 recipes on there. Some are available for people to visit and view. They don't have to be a member, but a lot of the gold medal winning recipes from the National Homebrew Competition are locked. So you do need to be a member to access those.
okay.
So, I'd say a lot of our traffic on the website in the recipe section goes towards some of those clone recipes, especially the really popular ones, like the Pliny the Elder clone is extremely popular.
Mm,
The one for Hetty Topper, I think, is really popular. Julius from, um, I'm blanking, Treehouse Brewing Company. Those are
okay.
all really popular, but the ones that I really think are the coolest are the ones that are, yeah, those gold medal winning recipes from the National Homebrew Competition. Because, if you look up a recipe anywhere online and you're just finding some random recipe, it's kind of like you get what you pay for, right? Like I remember
Sometimes, yeah.
I made a Hefeweizen a couple years ago that I followed the recipe, and I was still kind of new to getting into home brewing, so I probably should have known better. Or now I know better, but it was not a Hefeweizen.
Mm,
By the time I got done with it, it used strawberries. It was a strawberry Hefeweizen, but
okay.
I got done with it, and it would just not was not what I was looking for.
Right.
So if you're really looking to brew a beer that is just like a gold medal winning recipe, you know that you're going to be brewing a great beer, then our recipe archives are, that's square one. I would definitely recommend people checking that out.
For sure. So, is that anecdotal of people saying that I checked out this one and I checked out that one, or do you guys keep statistics on ones that people have looked up?
We follow we use a Google Analytics plugin to make sure
Okay.
that we can follow like what are some of the most visited recipes on the website. But with 1,000 of them, it's really hard to keep a lot of accurate records
Oh,
on
sure. Yeah, and
what are the most trafficked.
I wasn't thinking of like a Big Brother aspect of that, but I was thinking along the lines of, are you noticing any trends in what people are looking up? Are tastes shifting from like the
Sure.
IPA craze or anything like that?
It's kind of hard to say just because typically whatever we post is like the most recent recipe that we post. There's a lot of traffic that goes towards that one. And
Okay.
we try to keep those very much. We know that not everybody wants to brew a New England IPA,
Right.
so we try to make sure that there's lots of examples of all styles from all over the board. So, like if you go to our website and you just look at the homebrew recipes little section there, you can click into the archive and view all 1,000 of them, but they're posted chronologically. So the four most recent ones that we've posted are for an espresso stout, an amber ale, a black IPA, ironically, and a Oktoberfest. So it's really all over the board.
Okay.
Um, I'd say that it seems to be that homebrewers' brewing habits don't always follow with consumer drinking habits. I think
Mm.
there's definitely consumer consumption. That's a redundant word, but
That's all right.
consumption of craft beer, I think, has really moved in this direction of there's a lot of the hazy IPAs available, which some people love, some people aren't crazy about. But the entries that we see into the national homebrew competition, I think, would probably be the best
Okay.
comparison for that kind of thing. Um, and it's IPA is definitely still the biggest category, but
Okay.
lot of stouts, a lot of dark beers, a lot of Belgian and German beers. So um, I'd say that homebrewers are really, on a whole, making pretty much everything.
Right. Yeah, in my kind of personal anecdotal, one of the biggest developments I've seen recently is people delving in and really refining the sour style. Because
Mm,
before it used to be a lot of dump some lactobacillus in, call it a sour, and it's almost
hmm
undrinkable, super tart and everything. But people are really refining it and playing with sour versus sweetness with adding lactose and things like that. And
Sure, yeah.
there's a lot of really exciting developments I feel coming in that area. So, have you guys noticed any kind of a uptick in that at all?
I think what we're seeing probably, I'd have to go and look. I might be able to pull it up right now, but I'd have to look at what our recipe traffic is. But
Sure.
mainly, I would say in the sour beer categories, I do think that people are starting to brew more of those like fruited gozas that
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
see.
Mm-hmm.
Like the classic Flanders Red. I'm love good. Like the Duchess de Bourgogne
Right.
kind of beer, classic
Yeah.
Flanders Red style. Um, but there's definitely a lot of movement towards those gozas and those fruited sour beers. So I wish that I had that information right in front of me, but I would just say anecdotally that yeah, I've seen a lot more of our recipes trending that way.
Okay. Well, that's very interesting. Um, so let's shift gears a little bit. So, on you as a more personal level, one of the things that I find is that there's a little bit of MacGyver in us all when we're doing these things, and we each build our systems a little bit differently. So I'm curious, what kind of a system do you have for homebrewing when you do get a chance to do that?
Well, if I'm being honest with you, I would love to have one of the the electric brewing
I understand
systems.
that. Yeah.
I would love to have a grandfather, but I do have a pretty classic setup of my boil kettle is 8 gallons, but I produce the classic 5 gallon batch that most recipes kind of come in that packaged format.
Right.
So I've got the 3 vessel kind of homebrewing setup with a classic igloo cooler as my mash tun and an outdoor propane burner. So the people that you see in those Buffalo Wild Wings commercials that make fun of homebrewers and stuff. That's
Yeah.
that's me.
Okay. All right. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Mine's actually pretty similar to that. I've added a few things. I got a pump system to move the water around and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. But I use a classic 10-gallon igloo cooler with a false bottom myself. So
Oh,
no
nice.
shame in that at all. So what was the
Yeah,
last thing? Oh, go ahead.
I was say I'm slugging homebrew around, and I'm sure using all sorts of terrible ergonomic back uh, tactics to move my beer around. I don't have any pumps yet, but I don't know. One of these days, maybe I'll upgrade.
Yeah, well, that's a problem for
I think if I
future
were to
us
upgrade
too.
though, at this point, I would get one of the all-in-one systems. Those are really nice.
Those are, yeah, and I totally get the for the consistency and the ease of it. There's a certain part of me though that likes the more interactive element of the
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like there's a difference. The other part seems a little automatic sometimes. So
there's definitely a piece of that. I think hands-on control that you give up,
yeah,
but I guess you just have to kind of weigh that in your own mind as to am I gaining what am I gaining over what am I giving up? In my
sure.
mind, I'm giving up a whole lot of pain in my butt to to make beer.
Yeah.
So I'd be happy to have that. But
No,
I don't, yeah, I get where you come from.
yeah, yeah. So the follow up question to that is, what's the last thing that you did brew?
I made well, I have not made a beer since I moved into my new house, which was about 6 months ago, unfortunately, just because everything's in boxes and stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
But my next brew that I'm going to be making is going to be the official Big Brew recipe.
Oh, okay.
So we've got Big Brew coming up on May 2nd, and the beer that we're actually going to be posting hopefully tomorrow, if not Monday by the latest, is called Pangea Proxima IPA.
Okay.
And that beer is, I guess you're the first to hear it. Congratulations! This
All
is
right. Exclusive.
breaking exclusive news. Yeah, Pangea Proxima IPA is actually going to be the official commemorative beer recipe for HomebrewCon,
Okay.
and it's going to be made. The commemorative beer is being made by Jackalope Brewing Company in Nashville, Tennessee, which is where HomebrewCon is going to be. Um, and the recipe features hops from Brewer Supply Group (BSG), who is going to be the official sponsor of Big Brew this year, as well as a Kvike. Kvike? Am I saying that right?
I think so. Nobody's really sure, to be honest.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think anybody is either. Kvike, Kvike yeast. We're going to go with that. I'm
Okay.
sure some people are gritting their teeth. Kvike yeast from Lallemand, who is also a presenting sponsor for HomebrewCon this year. Excuse me, for Big Brew this year. So yeah, I'll be brewing up a batch of that. I'm pretty excited about it. The theme of the recipe is kind of the yeast is Kvike yeast, so it's a Norwegian
Right.
yeast, like all Quebec yeasts are, and the hops from the recipe are all New Zealand hops. So
Oh.
it's very much a I don't think we want to say bipolar IPA because that's just a terrible way of saying it.
Ha.
There's recipes, there's ingredients from areas that are close to both of the poles.
Yeah.
So
You definitely
we,
have a hemispheres thing going on. So
yeah,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
right.
All
So we're
right.
pretty excited about it. Pangea Proxima, they got the name because that is the alleged supercontinent that will form 300 million years in the future, I
Oh,
think,
so we're
something
it's
like
supposed
that.
to. I guess that would make sense with the plates. It would come back together at some point. So,
Yeah.
huh?
So
Okay.
the ingredients are all being brought together. I thought it was a cool twist to the recipe. And Bailey Spalding, who is the co-founder of Jackalope Brewing in Nashville, she's going to be our keynote sponsor, keynote speaker
Mm-hmm.
at HomebrewCon. She's the one who provided the recipe and pointed out something that we thought was great, and that on May 2nd is Big Brew. For those who don't know, it's celebrated every year in honor of National Homebrew Day. Um, and like I was mentioning before, in a time where we're not able to really get together and we're supposed to be socially distancing ourselves, homebrewing is a very social hobby, and
Mm-hmm.
people love to get together to brew together. But they cannot at the moment, unfortunately. But this recipe is kind of bringing ingredients from opposite sides of the globe together into one beer, and hopefully bringing people together to brew at the same time on Big Brew, and just kind of a, you know, a
Kind of a
one
solidarity
togetherness
thing.
solidarity thing. Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go.
Okay. All right. Good. Yeah.
I'm sure I'll leave it up to the marketing people to come up with better catchphrases for that, but that's kind of the gist of it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Speaking of your marketing team, they have been active. Let me tell you, because I've seen just so many different things coming out recently about, for breweries, about what they should do with, with the CARES Act that came out with,
Yep.
talking about home brewers, how they can still find ingredients and things like that. They've just been
Yeah.
hitting it out of the park as far as keeping people informed. So,
Yeah, so right now, obviously, with a lot of stay-at-home orders in various states around the country, I think it's something like 80% of Americans are under a stay-at-home order.
mm-hmm.
Um, we have a post on our website, and it's just the very first thing you see on homebrewersassociation.org is supply shop purchasing options during coronavirus COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we did a survey. We put a survey out to all homebrew shops, excuse me, all homebrew shops in the country, and asked them to tell us, hey, what kinds of services are you still offering to the homebrewing community? And they responded, and we just have a live post on our website. We're updating it all the time as shops respond to us, but saying, hey, excuse me, I'm sorry, saying like, hey, Wine and Hop Shop in Madison, Wisconsin, they're offering call ahead orders, delivery. You can get gift cards from them. You can do online orders. So just giving people a little bit more clarity about how they can support their local homebrew shop in this time of uncertainty.
Sure.
So yeah, we're really, really happy to be doing that. And also the Brewers Association. Those who don't know, the AHA is a subsidiary of the Brewers Association. Um, the BA has a very similar post about how to support your local support your local brewery, and it's actually on craftbeer.com, which is our consumer facing branch of the organization to further awareness of independent and locally owned craft breweries. But anyway, the craftbeer.com has this list of all breweries that are still offering things like beer to go, crowlers, growlers, food to go, curbside pickup. So you can look up, maybe you don't know what your local brewery is offering at the moment, or if they're still open during this time, but you can go to craftbeer.com and check out by your state and see what breweries are still selling what and how you
Right.
can support them.
Yeah, no, it's been a lot of really good information I've read, and reposted a bunch of it, because it's one of those things that, like, we, especially like we talked about before, the community is very engaged with helping people and supporting people,
Mm-hmm.
and I know, there's a lot of people that have actually stepped up some of their purchasing of craft beer in a takeout capacity, or gotten homebrew stuff that they don't necessarily need right now, but it helps out, and that's just in an
Yeah,
effort to support people. And that's been, I'm very proud of my community for stepping up and doing that, and I think that that's definitely a good thing. So
yeah.
we have another incoming participant here. This is Jason. Jason, meet Matt.
Hey, Jason.
Yeah.
Hi, Matt. Nice to meet you.
Nice
Uh,
to meet you as well.
I feel
Jason.
like I came in at a great moment. We're talking about just the community coming together, and
Mhm.
I can echo all those points. It
Mm-hmm.
really has, and that's been a nice bright point in what's been a very challenging time for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, so Jason's the other half of A Nice Place to Brew, and he's out in the Chicagoland area in Darien, which
Yep,
is a nice place to live, right, Jason?
and a nice place to brew,
And a
not to
nice place to
forget.
brew, yeah.
Yes, it
And
is where we got the podcast name from.
it is, yeah. And so we both have our Virginia craft brews here. So what are you sporting tonight?
I'm not sporting anything yet.
Oh, that's
I
so sad.
literally just put my work down, and I knew I was already late, so I wasted no time, and I just went
Okay.
dove right on. So
All right.
I feel bad enough for being late.
That's all right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, can what do you guys got going? What do you got, George?
Oh, so I have, it's called Hellas Awaits, and it's from Ocelot Brewing out of Dulles, Virginia. And it's 5%, so it's nice, easy drinking, and just a little bit of hot bite. So it's quite nice. I like it.
I've
Nice.
got Long Black Veil from Port City Brewing in Alexandria. This is a black IPA, 7.5%. Color, jet black, they list.
Okay.
Tasting notes are roasty, piney, and assertive. So one of my favorite styles, and one of those things that I feel like was kind of flash in the pan kind of style for a while in like 2014, 2015,
Yeah.
maybe even a little before that, and then it kind of, I don't know, faded into a little bit harder to find nowadays. And so it's always been one of my favorites. So anytime that I see a black IPA or have the option to brew a black IPA, I'm all over it.
George and I have talked at length on previous podcasts that every year there's a different like craft beer of choice that people gravitate to throughout the market. Last year is when hazy really took its foothold.
Mm-hmm.
Sours had a big year.
Mm-hmm.
I went.
Milkshake IPAs had their presence for a short
Yes.
time as well.
Yes. Well,
Yeah,
and then 2 years
and
ago was Brute IPA. Remember that? That came and kind of went
oh
a little
yes,
bit. Yeah.
I
So
like. I still. I mean, you and I are on the same page. I like the brewed
I
IPAs.
do.
I'd like to
Yeah,
see this stay around.
absolutely.
It is
So
interesting though that the IPA style has transcended all those. And there was a lot of
Yeah.
people on the onset that were like, "This isn't going to be around. This isn't going to be around." Well, we're 5+ years beyond that, and it's still here. So
well, it's almost
it's interesting.
become synonymous with craft beer in a way. Like every craft brewery worth
Yeah,
their
I would
salt
agree.
has at least one IPA on tap. Be it West Coast or New
Of
England.
some sort,
Yeah.
I'll,
right?
I'll never forget when I actually was first came on staff at the Brewers Association. Um, not a lot of people in my family are huge craft beer drinkers, and that's fine. Like my brother and I talk about it, but like my grandmother, I was trying to explain what I did to her, what I did for a living to her, and she was very sweet and listened to it, and she was like, "So you work for IPA, right?" And I was like, no, not exactly. Like she thought IPA was a company.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I had to just back up and be like, well, sure. Yeah, I work for IPA.
Yeah, it's a similar thing.
That feels like a t. That should be a t-shirt. T-shirt. I work for IPA.
Yeah. Oh man. So we were just talking about Big Brew Day, which is coming up on what, May 2nd, right?
May 2nd,
Yeah.
Saturday, May 2nd. The way that Big Brew normally works is we actually have people register to like brew at a Big Brew event at like a local homebrew supply shop or with a club or at a brewery or something. But given the way that, in the world of social distancing, we're definitely taking that into heart, and we're kind of redesigning the way the event is going to work this year. So instead of relying on people to register a organized Big Brew event with us, we're actually going to be taking brewing pledges. So we're going to be asking the world to pledge to homebrew on May 2nd for Big Brew at home.
Oh, sure.
So
twist people's arm, right?
Yeah, right. I'm sure everybody has. Sure, everybody has seen the trending hashtags of "stay home," and we're encouraging people to stay home brew.
Right.
So we want to make sure that the word gets out as much as possible, that we want the entire world to be brewing a batch of homebrew on May 2nd for Big Brew, and just kind of bringing everybody together in a time where it's difficult to find a lot of really great news out there. So this is hopefully something that will shine a lot of light on the hobby and shine a lot of light on some people who might need a chance to just sort of escape and then indulge themselves in a hobby that we all love for the afternoon.
So Jason,
morning.
Jason, do you want to go on record and commit to a virtual Big Brew Day that we'll live stream?
I'm in.
You're in. All right.
There you go.
So we're in. We're the first.
I'm holding you to it.
There you are. Right.
Okay.
We will absolutely do it. So
it's on video, so the world's gonna hold me to it.
We're live. There's no editing this out.
Yes, we are. Saturday, May 2nd, correct?
Saturday, May 2nd. Big Brew is always the first Saturday in May. So what Big Brew really is, in 1988, 32 years ago, I know that because I was born in 1988. 32 years ago, Congress actually declared May 7th as National Homebrew Day. So it is on record with the government as May 7th is National Homebrew Day. However, since May 7th is not always on a day when everybody can homebrew, we celebrate what's called Big Brew, and the full name is Big Brew for National Homebrew Day. Is always the first Saturday in May because people are able to actually brew on a Saturday. Although now nowadays, who knows? Maybe people can brew whenever they want. But May 7th this year is on a Thursday, so Big Brew is celebrated the Saturday before. And it's just, it's not always on National Homebrew Day, but Big Brew is just kind of the day that we celebrate as the spirit of that holiday.
Right. No, totally makes sense. Yeah. We've actually participated in
Workforce,
yeah.
Like Workforce, where it's listening to this right now or in the future. Hello, future people.